All right, let's jump right into it. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating roadmap. We're going to demystify exactly how to build wealth from absolute scratch. Instead of staring at this totally intimidating millions of dollars finish line, we're going to break this journey down into one laser-focused objective: hitting your very first $10,000. So here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the 10 key myth versus reality. Second, 4 paths to making cash. Third, the high income skill pyramid. And finally, investing for long-term wealth. Let's get to it. Okay, section 1, the 10K myth versus reality. Building a foundation, not rolling the dice. Look, when you're starting from absolute zero, no qualifications, no big bankroll, looking at making millions is just, well, it's paralyzing, right? But asking yourself how to make just $10,000, suddenly that goal feels completely achievable. It takes this massive, overwhelming mountain of wealth creation and breaks it down into a single, totally climbable hill. And that brings us to a really core idea here. Making money is a skill and not luck. Hitting that first 10 grand is honestly a massive psychological milestone. It proves to you beyond a shadow of a doubt that wealth creation is a repeatable process. You're no longer just crossing your fingers and relying on luck. This right here is exactly where so many beginners drop the ball. They end up chasing get-rich-quick myths, things like day trading or crypto. But actually, those require huge upfront cash reserves and, frankly, a crazy amount of luck. Instead, when you're just starting out, your absolute focus should be the reality: a service business. It requires barely any money to start and constantly puts reliable cash in your pocket, day in and day out. Moving on to section 2. 4 paths to making cash. We're analyzing the best way to start from zero. So when we compare our actual options for making cash, we see a pretty clear trade-off. In-person services, like washing cars or delivering food, are incredibly fast to start, sure, but your reach is super limited locally. Then you have local products, like baking or crafts. They're fun, but the cost of materials just eats your profit margins alive. Global products, like drop shipping, solve that local issue, but your cash usually gets trapped in this endless cycle of restocking inventory. And that leaves us with the ultimate winner for beginners: online services. Think video editing or copywriting. By combining the massive global reach of the internet with insane 70 to 80% profit margins, this is hands down the absolute fastest way to hit that $10,000 mark from day one. Best part? No physical inventory required. All right, section 3, the high income skill pyramid. This is how you turn a basic skill into a $10,000 income. The very first element is positioning. You got to realize that businesses think about money way differently than you and I do. A business making 50 grand a month will happily drop $2,000 to solve a problem, especially if it directly boosts their bottom line. So you have to position yourself right where the money is flowing. Don't just be a generic, replaceable video editor for a tiny creator. Be a high-income editor for an entrepreneur selling high-ticket products. Big difference. Element number 2 is leverage. Listen, there is a massive, and I mean massive, shift in your earning power the exact moment you stop charging for your time and start charging for the return on investment you provide. If you charge by the hour, you are just an expense that the client wants to minimize. But if you charge based on the actual revenue your work generates, boom, you suddenly become a profit center for them. Next up, element 3, reach. The old way of doing this, endlessly cold emailing and constantly chasing down clients, is just exhausting. The new way? You build a magnet. By documenting your process online, say a graphic designer posting their actual design process on TikTok, you are letting your public portfolio do all the heavy lifting. You literally make the clients come to you. Now, before we hit the final element, I want you to consider this staggering number: 95%. That is the percentage of young people who start a side hustle and literally fail before they even get off the ground. And the reason? It's not a lack of talent. It's simply because they miss their deadlines and completely drop the ball. Which is exactly why element 4 is automation and reliability. Overlooking this is the biggest mistake beginners make. You really don't have to be the most talented person in the room to get paid top dollar. You just need to be the most organized. Clients value effortless communication over pure talent any day of the week. So ditch the messy sticky notes. Rely on automation. Use a basic CRM system to track your clients and expected revenue, and absolutely never miss a deadline. Do that and you become an invaluable asset. Moving into our final section, section 4, investing for long-term wealth, turning your active income into a passive fortune. So let's look at the investment risk scale. We're going to walk through 4 key steps here: high yield savings accounts, index funds, individual stocks, and finally, cryptocurrency. We'll be moving from absolute rock solid financial safety nets all the way up to the high risk, highly volatile plays. Step 1 is setting up a high yield savings account. Now, actually, scratch that. Holding cash isn't technically investing, but it acts as a crucial 3% buffer. You see, if a random life emergency hits, this cash safety net sitting on the sidelines ensures you aren't forced to sell off your actual investments at a loss just to cover the bills. Step 2 is index funds and ETFs. And guys, the math here is just incredible. To put this into perspective, if you invest just $5 a day, literally the cost of your morning coffee, into an index fund tracking the S&P 500 from age 18 to 67, you would retire a millionaire. No joke, it is the ultimate low-maintenance wealth vehicle. As we escalate up the risk scale, we hit individual stocks. This requires some real hands-on learning, but it gives you direct exposure to massive company gains, along with higher ups and downs. Then, at the peak of the risk scale is cryptocurrency, like Bitcoin or Ethereum. It's highly volatile, so it requires disciplined strategies like dollar cost averaging, but it obviously offers the potential for massive, asymmetric returns. So what does this all mean? Well, making the money is truly only half the battle. Hitting that first $10,000 milestone is huge because it proves you've built the skill to generate cash. But what you do next, that determines your entire future. So I'll leave you with this. When you finally master the skill of making your first $10,000, are you going to spend it just to look rich, or will you invest it to actually become wealthy? Definitely something to chew on. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.